Welcome to Understanding the Bible with Pastor Stephen. This is season 4, episode number 17, Heroes, David's 30. So that's the mighty men of King David, the second anointed king of Israel. And this is the story of his 30 mighty men. Now, I'm not going to say too much about them. I'm just going to read because there's only like one line or one verse for each of these guys, and some of them don't even tell their feats. So it didn't make much sense to do a whole episode on each, individual episode on each one of these guys. But there's some of my favorites. They're very cool in the feats that I look at them as David's personal bodyguard, like his special forces type guys. So they were every single one of them was tougher than your average soldier. Okay, you can tell by these stories. But let's take a look. It starts in 2 Samuel 23. Verse 1. Now these be the last words of David. David, the son of Jesse, said, and the man who was raised up on high, the anointed of the God of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel. Then it goes down to verse 8, and he tells about his mighty men. And it's very fascinating that King David, one of his last written words that he ever did, was to honor these men that lived their life with him to protect him and in service of the country. So this is pretty cool. This is one of the last things that he wrote. Verse 8, these be the names of the mighty men whom David had. The Tachmonite that sat in the seat, chief among the captains. The same was Adino the Eznite. He lifted up his spear against 800 whom he slew at one time. And after him was Eleazar, the son of Dodo the Ahohite, one of the 3 mighty men with David, when they defied the Philistines that were gathered together to battle, and the men of Israel were gone away. 4 guys attacked an army. That's crazy. Verse 10. He arose and smote the Philistines until his hand was weary, and his hand clave unto the sword. And the Lord wrought a great victory that day, and the people returned after him only to spoil. There's a lot in there, if you think about that. His hand clave unto the sword. Basically, when you get a cramp, think about having a leg cramp or something. This guy fought through that. So much so, hacking away at bodies and trying to survive and twisting and turning and lifting a heavy metal sword and slashing and everything. His muscles were so freaking tired that they cramped and froze in the position they were in. He could not drop his sword at the end of the day. That's amazing. What he had to fight through just with his hand there, let alone the rest of his body and everything else he was doing. But let's look at the next verse. Oh, and it said, so great was the victory that the people returned after him only to spoil. So that means he killed everybody. And when the Israelite army came to help, all they had to do was strip the bodies and take the money and the clothes and the weapons and stuff. And after him was Shammah, the son of Agi, the Hararite, and the Philistines were gathered together into a troop, where was a piece of ground full of lentils, and the people fled from the Philistines. So the farmers and everybody ran. Verse 12, but he stood in the midst of the ground and defended it. So the army's coming, the Philistine army, the people ran, all the workers ran, and any people that may have had a sword, guarding the field or whatever. And the army just swooped in, and he stood there and he's like, I'm not leaving. And he defended it and slew the Philistines, and the Lord wrought a great victory. And 3 of the 30 chief went down and came to David in the harvest time unto the cave of Adullam, and the troop of the Philistines pitched in the valley of Rephaim. And David was then in an hold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then in Bethlehem. And David longed and said, oh, that one would give me drink of the water of the well of Bethlehem, which is by the gate, in a fortified enemy position, okay? Verse 16, and the 3 mighty men brake through the host of the Philistines and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and took it and brought it to David. Nevertheless, he would not drink thereof, but poured it out unto the Lord. Now, this is a warrior type thing. It's not that he was disrespecting them. They broke through the enemy lines just to get a canteen full of water from the well of Bethlehem, okay? They break through the lines again and survive. So they're probably fighting a battle the whole time. 2 guys stop and defend the one guy that's getting the water out. I mean, it's some crazy, life-threatening, harrowing adventures that these guys went on. And they get back to David and he's like, oh no, I can't believe you guys did this for me. And you may have heard of standing around the grave of a soldier and you pour out a drink on the grave for the dead guy in honor of his memory. So what he's doing here is he's actually pouring out the water to God. He's treating God as one of his soldiers. It's a weird metaphor. It's not exactly what he did, but it was an honorable thing to pour the water out is what I'm getting at. And then the other thing here is that he did not want a sip of water to be like the only thing that was their life was worth. And so he's saying, look, if you can't have a drink, there's not enough for everybody. I'm not going to drink it either. So there's multiple reasons that he did that for honor, but it doesn't take away from their bravery in getting that water. And verse 17, King David said, "Be it far from me, O Lord, that I should do this. Is not this the blood of the men that went in jeopardy of their lives? Therefore he would not drink it." These things did these three mighty men. And Abishai, the brother of Joab, the son of Zeruiah, was a chief among three. And he lifted up his spear against 300 and slew them and had the name among three. So there's the three, I guess the three best, okay? And this guy was better than the other two. Was he not most honorable of three? Therefore he was their captain. Howbeit he attained not unto the first three. Sorry, he wasn't the best. Not even the best, and he could kill 300 enemy all at once. Verse 20, this is my favorite. Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, the son of a valiant man of Kabzeel, who had done many mighty acts, he slew 2 lion-like men of Moab. He went down also and slew a lion in the midst of a pit in time of snow. Now the Moabites would not have been in Israel unless they were spying out the land. They were enemies, so it could be that these lion-like men were giant-like or very muscular, tough spies or forward scouts coming in. Well, he went down there, and rather than let them go back and take a report back to Moab, he went down there and killed them. That's pretty tough to just decide I'm going to handle this instead of running back to get help. And then I like the part that he went down also and slew a lion in the midst of a pit. To me, that strikes of a man that wanted to test his own courage and strength. There was no reason to jump in the pit to kill the lion. But he was probably like, I wonder if I could take this guy all on my own. He put his sword down, jumped down in the pit, and just fought the thing barehanded, probably. I don't know. But on top of that, he did it in the wintertime in snow. So slippery, cold, just increased his risk there. Then verse 21, Benaiah also slew an Egyptian, a goodly man, and the Egyptian had a spear in his hand, but he went down to him with a staff and plucked the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and slew him with his own spear. Now I'd say this is probably the same thing. The Egyptians had always been enemies of Israel ever since the Moses, when they were slaves in Israel. So probably the same thing here. He saw an Egyptian and he's like, oh no, not in my country. And he went down and he took him out. But he apparently didn't have his own sword or thought it was dishonorable to fight a guy with a spear while he had a sword. So he set his sword down and took the man's spear from him. So he fought him barehanded. These things did Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and had the name among 3 mighty men. So he was one of those 3. He was more honorable than the 30. But he attained not to the first 3, and David set him over his guard. So he was not as tough as the first 3, but he was more honorable than all the others. So my guess is that because of that honor, that's what made him do those things that he did. And then, of course, that was recognized. And even though he wasn't the toughest soldier, he was put in charge of the toughest soldiers. So I like Benaiah. He's one of my favorites. But let's look at the next one, which is verse 24. Asahel, the brother of Joab, was one of the 30. Elhanan, the son of Dodo of Bethlehem. Shammah the Harodite. Elika the Harodite. Helez the Paltite. Ira the son of Ikish the Tekoite. Abiezer the Anathothite. Mebunai the Hushathite. Zalman the Ahohite. Maharai the Netaphathite. And I think these are just places where these guys are from. It's like we say we're Americans, or, I'm from Indiana or whatever. That's what I think all of these names are, is just the family names as to where they come from. Because obviously these are Jews of the 12 tribes of Israel. So this is probably more location or family names that we're hearing here. And then we have Heleb, the son of Bana and Netophathite. Itta, the son of Ribai, out of Gibeah of the children of Benjamin. There you go. Benaiah, the Pirathonite. Hiddai of the brooks of Gash. Albalban, the Arbathite. Asmaveth, the Barhumite. Eliba, the Shalbanite of the sons of Jatham. Jonathan. Shammah, the Hararite. Ahiam, the son of Sharar, the Hararite. Eliphelet, the son of Ahasbai, the son of the Machathite. Eliam, the son of Ahithophel, the Gilonite. Hezrai, the Carmelite. Parai, the Arbite. Igal, the son of Nathan of Zobah. Bana, the Gadite. Zelek, the Ammonite. Naharai, the Berothite. Armor-bearer to Joab, the son of Zariah. Ura, an Ithrite. Gareb, an Ithrite. Uriah the Hittite, 30 in all. Now, it's 30 mighty men. He says that in several places, but here he lists 37. So it makes sense that 7 of these men at one time or another died either in combat or of old age. I highly doubt it was old age, but it's possible. It doesn't say anywhere in the Bible where these 7 men died. But it seems like King David had a personal bodyguard or a troop, a special forces of 30 guys that whenever one left, that could be it too, transferred out to another stronghold or something, then a new soldier was brought in so that he always had 30. But in total, that was 37. So, it'd be like saying the Navy SEAL Team 6. Well, they haven't always been the same guys. Some guys have died. They recruit new guys. You see what I mean? Now, the second place that these guys are talked about is in 1 Chronicles chapter 11. Starting in verse 10, it says, "These also are the chief of the mighty men whom David had, who strengthened themselves with him in his kingdom and with all Israel to make him king, according to the word of the Lord concerning Israel. And this is the number of the mighty men whom David had. Jashobeam and Hachmonite, the chief of the captains, he lifted up his spear against 300 slain by him at one time. And after him was Eleazar, the son of Dodo, the Ahohite, who was one of the 3 mightiest. He was with David at Pasdammim, and there the Philistines were gathered together to battle, where was a parcel of ground full of barley, and the people fled from before the Philistines, and they set themselves in the midst of that parcel and delivered it and slew the Philistines. And the Lord saved them by a great deliverance. Now 3 of the 30 captains went down to the rock to David into the cave of Adullam, and the host of the Philistines encamped in the valley of Rephaim. And David was then in the hold, and the Philistines' garrison was there at Bethlehem. And there you have the story of the water, right? And then he poured it out. These things did these 3 mightiest. And then verse 20. And Abishai, the brother of Joab, he was chief of the 3 for lifting up his spear against 300. He had his name among 3, and he was more honorable than the other 2, for he was their captain. And then Benaiah, he did many acts, and he had the name among the 3 mighties. Behold, he was honorable among the 30, but did not attain to the first 3. And then they list the names again, and you have some different names in here. So that goes back to what I was saying before. But those are your stories. There's not a lot. There's, 3 or 4 different stories listed there. But what can we learn about David's mighty men and why they were so important that this is one of the last things that King David ever had written down? That's pretty fascinating in and of itself. Well, he owed the kingdom to them, right? That's what it said in First Chronicles. If it weren't for them, that's how he became king. But physical strength is important. And guys, this may be more for you, but ladies too. Training for combat is an acquired skill. You need to be physically fit and you need to be active. That is important for a Christian. Why? We'll get to that in a minute. But all of them had loyalty to the death. So do we have this kind of loyalty in ourselves for God? If someone put a gun to your head and said, do you follow Jesus Christ? If you say yes, I'm going to kill you. Would you say yes? Would you fight? I'd like to think I'd try and fight, to survive, but I don't know. I know there are stories of even young girls in college who in recent days, had that happen and died for their faith in God, right? Do we have that loyalty? Do we exhibit that kind of loyalty to our close friends and family? Do you have friends who are willing to be loyal to you? Remember, this kind of loyalty and obedience brings true joy in your life. I'm talking obedience to God, loyalty to your friends and family. Jesus said in John 15:11, these things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you and that your joy might be full. If you have this warrior's spirit and loyalty, willing to fight for somebody, you live life to the fullest. You are joyful when you're around those people, right? That's the idea. It's the joy of God is your strength. And that joy comes from self-sacrifice, service, love, obedience, and loyalty. But Jesus said that your joy might be full. And then in verse 12, John 15:12, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Do we have that kind of love for our fellow Christians? Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. That's what these mighty men had. The willingness to lay down their life for each other. Can we say that about anyone that is a Christian brother or sister? Jesus said, you are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you. So we need to understand that in addition to all of that, killing is not wrong. It is far from murder. The 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill, it's referring to an unjust killing of an innocent. Clearly, if you read the Bible, the scripture is full of punishments and death penalties endorsed by God. Even commandments to, if someone does something, you must put them to death. And then also throughout scriptures, the Old Testament and New Testament, defense of life, defense of innocent people, and even defense of your property requires swift justice. It is okay to kill. Not all the time. I'm not saying that you should, look for reasons to kill people. I'm saying if you are in defense, you have the right of self-defense. You have the right to step in to help somebody else. Remember Exodus 15:3. The Lord is a man of war. Remember Psalm 144, verse 1. A psalm of David. Blessed be the Lord my strength, which teacheth my hands to war and my fingers to fight. Are we teaching, as men of God, are we teaching our bodies, our hands to war and to fight? Why not? No, we don't need to today. We have the cops. Really? They going to be there when someone tries to rape your wife or hurt your kids or kidnap your kids or something? You think the cops are going to be there for it? No. The cops come afterwards. Are you able to fight? Not just are you willing. A lot of people are willing to fight. But are you able? Have you taught your hands to fight? Okay, and then let's not forget our patriotic duty to fight a revolution to punish evil kings and tyrants. Look at Psalm 149. The whole chapter, actually. It says, praise ye the Lord, sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praise in the congregation of saints. Talking to believers. Let Israel rejoice in him that made him. Let the children of Zion be joyful in their king. Let them praise his name in the dance. Let them sing praises unto him with the timbrel and harp. So, let's have a church service. Let's praise God, right? Sing. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will beautify the meek with salvation. All right. Look at that word meek. Beautify the meek with salvation, okay? Let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. Verse 6, we're talking about Christians, people who believe in Jesus, who are meek and have been saved. 149, verse 6. Let the high praises of God be in their mouth and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains, we're talking about evil kings here, and their nobles with fetters of iron. How do you attack nobles? I'm thinking, modern day congressmen who are treasonous and who are harming the people who are evil. How do you bind them with fetters of iron when they're surrounded by a security team? I'm just saying, you have to be skilled in war and you got to have weapons, right? Verse 9, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. Praise you, the Lord. All of this stuff hinges on the proper worship and obedience to the God who created us. Every one of David's mighty men were Jews, following God, and the scriptures that they had to the best of their ability. They were also in public service to the anointed by God, King of Israel, King David. So we got to understand the purpose is twofold. It's a one single-minded purpose of serving a just God who has laws and punishments, right? But it's this fear of God and keeping his commandments that restrains us. Ecclesiastes 12:13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man. Well, what's the second purpose of that? What does that bring? It brings an abundant and joyful life. So be proud of being a warrior, both spiritually for God and physically to fight for what is right, to protect others and what God has given you. John 10:10. Jesus said, I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. All right, in conclusion, guys, and women too, I am dead serious on this. This is the last in the series of warriors, heroes in the Old Testament, okay? Get physically fit, buy a weapon and train with it, and be a godly warrior who knows when to be meek. Until next time, keep searching for truth. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I wanted to clarify that last bit there. Remember Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount? You'll hear this verse a lot. I get a lot of pushback on this whenever I talk about masculinity and strength. Matthew 5, verse 5. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Now, there's a whole lot in there. I just want to break it down real quick. Meekness, they will inherit the earth. If you search after righteousness, okay, so that's why I always like to say, keep searching for truth, because if you find the truth and you try and follow it, that will lead to righteousness, okay? And if you look for the truth, you'll find it. That's the for they shall be filled part. Merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Pure in heart, for they shall see God. And peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. I'm going to go backwards on this. Peacemakers. You cannot be a peacemaker in a war-torn country with anybody when somebody's trying to kill you if you don't have the power to stop them and make them listen. You cannot be a peacemaker to someone that's trying to rape your wife and children. You can't. You are not the peacemaker if you sit there and take it, the death and destruction that they bring. So to be a peacemaker, you must be a strong warrior. Then, when you have the enemy under subjection, you've subdued them, you've stopped them by pointing a gun in their face or whatever, then they have to listen to you, and you can broker a peace treaty. Does that make sense? Peacemakers are not weak people. Peacemakers, by default, must be strong and more powerful than the enemy. How can you be merciful to somebody? you have to have the position of power. Because if you're on the floor begging them not to kill you, you are not having mercy on them. Right? Warriors can be merciful. When they have the power to shoot somebody in the face and the person begs for mercy saying, I have 2 children at home, then you have the ability to be merciful. Are you guys starting to see the pattern here that Jesus is talking about? Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Remember that being meek is not being weak. Only a strong and deadly warrior has the ability to be meek. You cannot restrain yourself from strength. You cannot restrain yourself and be gentle if you are not powerful. Meekness is strength under control. It is choosing to be quiet, gentle, or submissive when you have the power not to be. So remember that, guys. If you want to be meek, you got to be strong first. If you want to be merciful, you have to be powerful. If you want to be peacemakers, you have to be trained in the art of war. It's pretty clear. God wants warriors on his side because why? Exodus 15:3. The Lord is a man of war. Until next time, keep searching for the truth.